You good?
Yeah, we're good.
Welcome back to another episode of the Right Hand Drive Guys podcast, the podcast for guys who like right-hand drives. I'm Bobby. This is Aaron.
Yo.
And this is episode 73. And today we wanted to just kind of go over the Civic Type R, but not this Civic Type R behind us or just the EK9. We wanted to go over both of them and kind of go head to head with them.
Yeah,
right?
why not, right?
I personally have always been a Honda boy. I had to put on my Honda boy pants this morning when I woke up and, really take it back. And yeah, I've owned a few EK9s and I own this FL5 behind us. So I figured we need to pay a little homage to the Civics, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
So I'm just going to start right off and I'm just going to say the 1999 Civic Type R X is the best Civic ever created.
Whoa.
Sorry. I just had to just set it right straight so we weren't confused for the whole rest of this. But yeah, I mean, if you don't know much about the Civic Type R, it started with the EK9 generation, which was a 97 thing, but that's not where the Type R badge itself started, is it?
No, it started back in, 92?
92.
With the NSX.
Yeah, the
NSX Type
NSXR
R.
is the first vehicle that displayed the Type R badge.
Yeah.
Which is pretty huge. And then shortly after that, in 96, the DC2 and DB8 Integra Type Rs both carried the badge. So,
right.
The EK9 was definitely not the first, but it definitely holds its place for sure as, one of those cars that just kind of changed the route in which things were going.
It's definitely the most iconic Civic Type R. 100%.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's one that, it kind of came way later than the first Civic name. It actually, the EK9 is the 6th generation Civic.
Right.
So it took them 6 generations of Civic, whereas the DC2, that's the 2nd generation. The NSX is the 1st generation.
DC2's 3rd, I think.
Is it?
I believe so.
The DA.
Well, there was one before the DA, too, with the pop-up headlights.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, in the 80s.
Yeah, everyone forgets about that
You're
one.
right, yeah. So,
but I don't know if they consider that a DA or not.
I don't know. Either way,
I'm not a Honda boy. So.
Yeah, so 6 generations in, we got the EK9. And I'm super sure most of you guys are familiar with that iconic championship white Civic hatchback, right? And so, these came with a B16B engine, which, of course, dual overhead cam, VTEC, 1.6 liter. Screamer, with that 5-speed transmission, right?
Yeah.
And so these things, quite early, got a reputation for being little concho racers, for sure. From a very early stage when these became popular, they were being used, in Osaka on the highways. They were being used, at Fuji on the track as just little rippers. And so what a lot of people don't necessarily understand is this car isn't just a regular Civic with white paint and, this B-Series motor.
Right.
There's quite a bit of other small changes that contributed to the weight of the vehicle, the chassis rigidity, those different, little things that actually do matter at the track.
Oh, yeah.
And so do you remember the first time you saw an EK9? Maybe not in person, but when you are wait, Civic Type R, what's the difference between that and a SIR? That type of thing.
Right. I mean, it was definitely in the video games, obviously back in the day.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
It was a while. It might have even been yours. Yours was the first one I saw.
Yeah.
Like in person, at least.
Right. Yeah. So, again, if you're not familiar with this, these cars came with the full red interior, the Recaro seats, and they were available only in Japan. So this first model of the Civic Type R is Japan only.
Yeah.
No Euro, no USA, just Japan.
Nice.
And they put out 182 horsepower with the B16B. And, I mean, that's decent, especially considering that the car is very light. And when you mix that higher horsepower, high revving, these tacked out at 8,900 RPM.
Yeah.
Like, you mix those, and that's, like, a lot more than you would think, just the way it feels. So, yeah, I mean, these cars were awesome. If we want to chat about mine real quick, I had a 99 Civic Type RX.
Yeah.
Okay, and that was like, this was back in 2007. Okay, so I have a car less than 10 years old.
Yeah.
Like, at my disposal. I mean, I was like, only 4 years out of high school at this point, right?
Yeah.
So I shouldn't have had this car, but I had it.
Right.
And so what's the RX, right? Like, people would be like, most people have just heard of a Civic Type R. And I even, at the time when I had purchased this car, had only heard of a Civic Type R. When he listed this on good old Honda Tag as an RX, like, I'm just like, okay, like, what is that?
You got a prescription for that? Or
Yeah.
something?
Yeah, what's the deal with it? And then I'm thinking, oh my gosh, dude. Like, I'm basically thinking, like, is this like the 400R of Civics? Like, oh my gosh, dude. No, not at all. It actually just came with body colored mirrors. It came with a CD player from the factory. It came with a carbon garnish around the CD player. And then, of course, the power folding mirrors, power windows, power locks, and the keyless entry as well.
So it's like the nicer version.
It's the nicer version, yes. Yeah. It's like, it's almost like less sporty.
Right.
In the sense of creature comfort.
Right, whereas the regular Type R has crank windows. I think you get them out radios.
Right, exactly.
Right, like,
The base Type R is crank windows, right, power or manual locks, when you push the thing and it locks them both. So, it was like a, I don't know, more luxury version compared to the Motorsports Edition, which came out because these started in 97. In 98, the Motorsports Edition came out, and then 99, the RX was introduced. So they kind of went to more bass and then less bass, right? So the Motorsports Edition came with steel wheels, gray EK interior, manual windows, no air conditioner, or any other creature comfort. So that was a freaking race car.
Right, it was going to the track. They were going to throw that interior away or whatever.
Exactly, they didn't need
makes
it.
Sense.
And so, the 97 EK was a like the first generation, right, of the Civic Type R, and then it got a facelift, which was in 1998. So they immediately go to the facelift from 98 to 2000, which just kind of smoothed out some of the rougher edges and, gave the headlights more of a smooth look. So, but Spoon Sports actually in 99 put out a limited number of the N1 Type R.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so these are ones that you hardly ever see, right? Like,
I bet.
I've never seen one. I've never seen one. But these were limited. I don't know exactly how many, but they turned up the rev limiter by all of their modifications from the 8,900 to 11,000. Can
insane.
you just imagine, dude, the chaos when you were at 11,000 RPMs in first gear, dude?
Yeah.
Oh, my Lord. Like, I cannot imagine.
Dude, yeah. I actually had a buddy back in the day. He was building an EK, and he didn't do much building, but he did a lot of parts collecting. One of the things that he had was a brand new in-box spoon cluster.
Oh, hell yeah.
And that was the thing that always stuck out to me about it, is that went to 11K, and I'm just like, wow, that's insane. And this thing
Yeah.
was brand new, 0 miles, had like the green
Yep.
needles and all that. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
that's really cool. And then he told me the price tag of it, and I was just like,
Yeah,
whoa.
those will go for ridiculous amounts of thousands right now.
Still think about that to this day if he still has that collection.
Oh, dude, if he does that thing, yeah, he could probably get a down payment for a house.
Easily.
So yeah, the only car I've ever been in that did 11K was a Mugen built by Mugen Integra Type R.
Yeah.
And dude, yeah, and that's why I say it's chaos, dude. Like riding shotgun in a Mugen Integra Type R at 11,000 RPM, dude, that is what got me into Hondas. Like it made me be like, wow, like these things have such a raw potential, naturally aspirated, that like I like this.
Yeah.
Never got to that myself, but
Right.
still cool. So I did get rid of my 99 Civic Type RX after I was able to get it into Import Tuner, which if you're watching on YouTube, you can see right in front of us, and also S3 Magazine in the same month. And then I got foolish and decided to sell it, right? Like not even considering what I was selling it for back in like 2009
Right.
is peanuts compared to what they go for now, especially in that condition. But then I missed it, right? The guy wasn't willing to sell it back to me yet. Bummer. Found another one.
Mm-hmm.
I was living in Tennessee at the time, right down in Arkansas. There was a guy with an all-stock, completely stock 97 Civic Type R.
Wow.
And I purchased it off him for what today is absolutely peanuts. And and then I built that one and ended up selling it to a guy that still has it that I know down in Mass. So, I had a few. I really loved them. It's for sure a car that I will own again. As you know, I'm always kind of in the search for that right EK9, But yeah, I mean, so you could say, some people would say that the Civic Type R stopped there.
Yeah.
Right? They would say it stopped.
For a lot of people, it did.
It did. In 2000, which was the last and final model of the EK9 generation, right?
Yeah.
So this episode is EK9 versus FL5, but we're going to kind of just run through these other Type Rs to kind of show some correlation to why maybe they weren't an EK9, so to speak, right? So next comes the EP3. So shout out Tiger. Love Tiger.
Yeah.
Tiger, please don't take offense to anything I may say. But this EP3 Type R has to come directly after an EK9 Type R, right?
Yeah.
And
big shoes to fill.
Big shoes to fill. And I personally, in my opinion, don't think they understood that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think they knew what they had gotten themselves into by releasing the EK9, right? So you get the EP3 from 01 to 05, okay? And it's a whole different car. They debut the K20A in this car, right? And they debut their rally shift technology, right? Like if anybody's ever seen it, it's like on the dash type thing.
Yeah, I think those Civics and CRVs are the only cars I've ever seen with that.
Yes. And so this, ends up putting out about 200 horsepower, right? So an uptick from the EK9, but also weighs, quite a bit more at 2,600 pounds, compared to the 2,300 pounds, 2,100 pounds, depending on what model you got of the Type R. So, of the EK9. So the big thing about this car, right? The EK9 was assembled in Suzuka in Japan, just as you would expect, right? You get down to this EP3, and it was assembled where? Where do you say?
The UK.
The UK, dude.
The UK.
Leave it to the UK to put out this friggin' thing, dude.
Right.
And so it's like, it's not my favorite. I feel like that European influence came through maybe a little too heavy for like a strong Japanese brand.
Yeah.
And, like I said, so they give us this till 05. All right, so what's next? Okay. In 07, they dropped the FD2.
Yeah.
And now the FD2, I would consider one of the best Type Rs.
Yeah.
You know, along with the EK9, I don't think it has that same, like, kind of, I don't know what you want to call it as the EK9, but it's definitely, it's one of those iconic Type Rs, right?
Yeah.
So this, so basically this is out around the same time as the DC5 Integra Type R is going out.
Right.
Right. So they introduced this. And this is also assembled in Japan.
Yeah.
Do you notice a trend here? Right. And these also had that K20.
Right.
You know, now they've upped it to 222 horsepower with the 6-speed manual.
Yeah.
So we're like getting there, right? However, again, that weight keeps going up at 2,800 pounds. So, you know, we're straying away from that original Type R EK9, like that chassis rigidity, lightweight chassis, that type of thing.
Right.
And we're adding these pounds. We're gaining a little horsepower, but we're getting away from that, like, true thoroughbred race machine.
Right,
you know what I'm saying?
Well, and also with this chassis, they had regular Civics with the same chassis. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas like the EP, that was its only thing, right?
Right, in Japan.
Correct. And then, you know, also with the newer cars, the newer emissions and newer safety regulations, I feel like that definitely plays a huge role in things like weight and just things like that. I mean, if you look at a dash on the FD2 and look at the EK9, like that dash is huge.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
There is.
If you look at the shape of the car itself, it's just like, holy cow.
It's like changing with the times, right?
Right.
As we know, EK9 hatchback, FD2 4-door.
Right.
You know, so
4 doors are heavy.
4 doors are heavy, and so some things that Honda started with the FD2, they started removing things like the Recaro seats. Now they're Honda seats.
Right.
With the Momo steering wheel, now it's a Honda steering wheel. So, you know, they did start removing some of maybe those more like branded
Special
items, you know, but I still think they did a great job overall with this car.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they put out 300 units of the Mugen RR in Milano red only, which is a dope looking car. Like the Mugen RR is a sick looking car.
So cool.
And so this had, you know, an extra 30 horsepower than the standard. And of course it came with the Mugen wheels and the Mugen camshafts and, you know, these different parts that really set it apart from the Type R. I mean, I would love to see one of those over in Japan or something.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, they're super cool.
So after the FD2 comes the FN2, okay? And this was only available Europe and other select international markets.
Yeah, this one.
Yeah. And this was basically the FD2 of the European and other international markets, right? And this one, of course, produced in the UK.
Yeah, you can definitely tell.
You can tell. And it's got a K20 Z4 with 190 horsepower, and it's weighing in at a ridiculously high 2,900 pounds for what it is, dude. I don't know if they got bricks in the trunk or what.
They
but,
must.
You know, this thing, I don't know.
Yeah, it just doesn't interest me at all.
We're going to keep going. Then, you know, in 2015, the 9th generation Civic, it's like, it's the 4th generation Type R, but it's the 9th generation Civic. And I don't know. Again, I don't know where they were going with this. It's another UK produced vehicle.
Right.
And it's like a weird mix of this FN2 that we were talking about and the FK8.
Right. It's like this weird in between. And
it really is. It has like the rear end of the FN2 and kind of a front end. It's, I don't know. But so this one, though, okay, was the first with the K20 C1, which the K20 C1 is the first ever turbocharged K-Series motor that is going in these cars.
Was this one still in A, or was this one turbo?
This one's turbo.
Oh, okay. Cool.
And so this was probably when this popped off in 2015, it probably was hot.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that they finally put that turbo motor in there, upping it from the measly 200 horsepower numbers up to 306 horsepower.
That's
up
a good
to
jump.
306 from, let's just say the FD2 at 222, 306, dude. This thing is like,
it's a good jump.
Yeah. But again, that weight just keeps climbing up to 3,000 pounds. So almost 3,100. So the FK2 kind of really, like, I feel like even though it's not popular, it for sure tipped the scales of where this was going.
Yeah.
This, I feel like, is the turning point, the FK2. And so after that, and I remember this, when this, came out in the U.S., was the 5th generation Type R and the 10th generation Civic, which is the FK8. And this was our chance to finally get the Type R.
Oh, yeah.
Finally a global Type R.
Right. Not an SI.
Not some
nothing,
lower model. It's
it.
It's it. So the FK8 came out swinging, although it was, again, produced in the UK, and I feel like you can tell, again.
Yeah.
It's like overdone.
Right.
The exterior's overdone.
You can usually tell with the lights.
Yeah,
There's
the way
something
that they
about
do
the
it.
headlights and the tail lights. It's been the same like since the Euro Accord R.
You're right.
It has a certain look to the taillights and headlights. I don't know if it's the colors or the type of reflectors or something they use, but it looks
you can tell.
You can definitely tell.
And so this is a 2017 to 2021 model year, right? So now we're really, really starting to get into electronics and driver control and these different items that really put us, there's a fork in the road between performance and technology with these cars. And I feel like with the FK8, they really started integrating some of that technology with it, and so the FK8 pumps out 316 horsepower, still at that 3,100 pound mark, with a few extra ponies. But this model, they really went hard on the interior with, the interior lighting, now all of these different things, the big screen, all of these kind of like new age electronics are coming into the car.
Like the CarPlay and all that.
Right,
like
everything like that. The data logging that's built in, all of that stuff starts coming out. And so this car took a lot of heat for these items, for the fact that, it did have such a large screen in it, and the rawness of like a, track car was kind of like smoothed out with some of these different components. That was kind of a big thing because, of course, with, like these type of cars, there's always that following that is always going to be hypercritical.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, we got it in June of 2017, and they definitely sold fast, and the MSRP over MSRP went up and up and up, and you couldn't get these things. And I mean, I personally am not like a huge fan of the FK8, but I think it was a necessary car to get us to where we are today.
Yeah. I mean, it was the first American Type R, like you said. But yeah, I don't know. I think anything that they made in Europe should have just kept that Euro R. Whoever switched that up in the end and was like, yeah, we'll let the Europeans use the Type R name. Whoever made that choice, I don't know if it was the best, but hey, we are where we are, and we got the Type R. So,
and so then that brings us to the 6th generation, the one that we have right behind us, which was introduced in July of 2022. Officially the FL5, and finally we are back in Japan, in Saitama, and they're producing it there, and it shows for sure. I mean, in my opinion, like, some guys may hate it, but I love this way better than the FK8.
Yeah.
And the FK8 actually came with 20-inch wheels on it. Did you know that?
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, and this comes factory with 19s, which is, I think, a lot more manageable, for what it is.
Big.
It is big,
it's
yeah.
Big.
And which means a skinnier tire,
Yeah.
But so the model year was 2023, and then, of course, the FL5 is still being produced. And the power output jumped up to 325 horsepower.
Decent.
Yes, but the weight jumped up to 3,200 pounds.
Oof.
So this is a heavy hoe back here. Like, realistically, compared to, this is 1,000 pounds heavier than an EK9.
Yeah.
1,000 pounds,
but
dude.
All the technology.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into that, don't you worry. But yeah, I mean, this thing is, I don't know. These things are fast, right? Like, we'll get into it a little bit more, but this holds the Suzuka lap record for front-wheel drive cars. This holds the Nürburgring record for front-wheel drive cars.
Yeah.
This car hauls stock, and that's not even discussing just a few modifications, right? And so, I mean, yeah, it's kind of one of those things, right? The way that now manufacturers are really like sharing chassis and all these different things. This is pretty much the same thing as an Acura Integra Type S or the DE5.
Right.
The parts are pretty much interchangeable, different body, and they do their whole thing. But what they did premiere with this was the triple exhaust.
Yeah.
Yeah, so... Yeah, I don't know. That's probably the one thing I don't love, right? Is the like 3 exhaust tips coming out of the back.
Yeah, the center exit.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's cool.
I guess if you got to have 3 tips, they should all be in the middle, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, that would be really weird if they spread them out. But, so we give you the rundown, right? Like from EK9 first gen to 6th gen FL5 a Civic Type R.
Yeah.
So... From here, what we all want to know, right, is which one is the best? Like, which, like FL5 versus EK9, boom, just like this, right? Let's break it down real quick, and let's figure out which one we each consider to be the best. So, I've been talking a lot. I'm going to let you go first about the things that you... like how you feel, right?
Right. So the EK9 is obviously the OG.
Yep.
It's way more, I guess you could say, raw.
And better, yeah. But yes, you're right. I would agree.
It's way more raw. And, it's got the Recaro seats, which that's super cool. Yeah, I just think the driving experience with it would be, I don't know, I guess, like I said, like a little more raw. Whereas like the newer one would also be fun, but in a different way. You have all these different like stability control, ABS, and all that.
Right.
You could really hammer on it and try to get into trouble and never really, lose traction, I guess you could say. Or
get to real trouble, which is engine failure.
Right.
Like, yeah, exactly. There's more fail safes in the sense of keeping you out of the real trouble.
And plus it's got obviously more power. So that's always cool. And it makes turbo noises.
Quite a bit more power, right? Because the 5-speed manual with the B16B only made 182, and here we're talking about 325.
Right. I mean, if it's one of those things, if you have a EK9 and all your buddies have EK9s, that's probably the cool thing. But dude, as soon as you get out with one of these things and you're just in a stock EK9, you're gonna get left.
No, yeah, stock for stock,
stock for stock.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So,
but it's just tough. If I was looking for a car I could beat around the track, beat around on the street, have fun with, daily drive,
Conjo race,
that thing all day, I'd take the new Type R.
Okay, so his vote is for the FL5.
Just because the all-aroundness of it, and I don't know, the color blue is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Like when we're talking EK9, it's like yellow, white, black, silver. Like that's pretty much it. These reds and all these
Red,
different
white,
blue.
Is that it? Red,
No,
white, and
there's
blue?
gray. There's
I'm surprised they didn't do a yellow. Or did they save that
too.
for the Integra?
I don't know. It's a good question. We're gonna have to find out.
Or no, they did that with the previous model, the FK8.
Oh yes, you're right. They had the yellow
That's
with
right.
the FKA. It was probably the
It was
low
unlimited.
seller.
It was a
Yeah.
limited thing.
So here's my take on it. Right.
Yeah, let's hear it.
The
You have both.
Yeah, I have had both. I've put plenty of miles on both. I obviously love the EK9 like so much. I love the EK9. And so because that's where I started, right? And so in my opinion, right, like this car is classic. I can't mentally replace this car. This car was built for exactly what it was supposed to be built for. It was not built to make you feel comfortable. It was not built to entertain you. It was not built to be this shiny thing. This was built to just hammer VTEC on the track, right? This car was very purpose built.
Yeah.
Okay. And so then when we talk about the car behind us is a shiny thing. Okay.
Yeah, it is.
In my opinion, it's a shiny thing. Okay. It is purpose built for the consumer. It is not purpose built for the passion. Right. And that's like my problem with the the FL5 is that it was built for the consumer in mind, which I understand. That's the market today. That's what you have to do and you have to keep up. This is sure a car that performs well on the track because of what they put in it for a motor.
Yeah.
But this is not a car outfitted for the track when it comes to the body, the chassis, all of these other items, right? They didn't necessarily save weight. You know what I mean? This isn't stripped down. This isn't this isn't a race car, in my opinion. And so when you go back to like the Type R badge in like 1992 and 96, and then of course the Civic in 97,
right?
I feel that with the new Type Rs, that like passion, that soul of the Type R has been lost a little bit. And that's just my opinion. What I do love about the FL5 is I've never had a car that you get stock and it's impressive, like this isn't a stock, it's an impressive car, and just a tune, like, so for this you have to send away the ECU.
Yeah.
It gets jailbroken by Hondata, and then you get the Hondata tune, right? Dude, the difference between a stock FL5 and an FL5 with a Hondata tune, just a regular exhaust tune, just one bolt-on exhaust, that tune, dude, blew my mind. Like, I've had quite a few cars, most of them tuned, all that.
Yeah.
This one went from like meh to oh shit, like hold on, like dude, dash hop in first and second gear, just like just wanting to rip. And so if in my opinion, I will always consider the EK9 because it's the first generation and because I believe it was a true like motorsport car. I will never be able to say that I think that the FD2 or the FL5 or whatever is better, because I feel like this is like you said, that raw beginning where, and it's just like anything, if you think of in the world, when it begins, it's the most pure, it's the most raw, it's the least influenced. You know what I mean? And now we're 6 generations in and we're influenced, right? And it's changed. And, so me, I'm an EK9 guy all day because of that, like, purity. However, I do see the necessity within the FL5 because we did want this forever. We wanted this through all these generations. We finally got it. Is it what we originally wanted? No, it's not, but it can't be. Right? It can't be. And so I do understand that part of it. Like, it can't be an EK9. It is an FL5. And so I do appreciate it for what it is.
Yeah,
And I do think it has potential, and I think it absolutely looks 10 times better than the FK8. You know what I mean? So, and I'm not trying to hurt no feelings.
I mean,
I'm
it's
just
the
being
best
real.
looking Civic since the FD2 already.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. So I think that there's room for at least the EK9 and FL5, you know, like, and I think that Honda did a good job with what they can, you know, because the market's not calling for this anymore either. And I do understand that. Let's just say if they put out the FL5 equivalent of an EK9, it wouldn't have sold.
Yeah,
it wouldn't have
people
sold.
would be. Well, I mean, it would have, but it would have been way harder.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been
Like it's not. It
easy
wouldn't
as
be
this.
like a normal consumer car.
Right.
Like,
and that's my whole point.
Right.
That's what they created for this, is that like this is for that guy that maybe was not desperately in love with EK9s or the Type R name.
Right.
A guy that just likes good-looking, fast, efficient vehicles. This applies to him.
Yeah.
He doesn't even got to give a shit about the Type R badge.
Right.
You know, so I do appreciate Honda giving us this.
Yeah.
You know, I do think that we needed this over the FK8 because the FK8 did not get my attention at all.
Right.
Yeah,
It was
like,
cool. It was a Type R. It had a turbo.
It was like, oh, cool, they're giving us this. And it has a dope motor.
Right.
But otherwise, like, it was never on my radar. Once this came out, I had one within 6 months.
Yeah.
Like, that became on my radar because I'm like, wow, like, they figured it out.
Yeah.
You know? So,
it's cool.
Yeah, shout out Honda, shout out the Type Rs. We just wanted to get into the Hondas, right? That's like really, really, really where I started. And we're obviously now super heavy on the Nissans, and we needed to make sure that we're showing love to these other manufacturers that have really contributed to what we love, right? And yeah, I mean, the EK9's the best Type R, and that's just what it is. So. But yeah, we appreciate you guys listening for sure. If we missed anything, if we said anything that was stupid, hit us up in the DMs. We'd be glad to hear it, 100%. Yeah. And don't forget to actually follow us on the socials at RHDGUIS. And we do have some FL5 merch if you want to check it out at rhdguis.com. But for the Type R episode of the Right Hand Drive Guys podcast, I'm Bobby. This is Aaron.
See ya.
Peace.